Hi everyone, in this video we're going to go through the scavenger hunt worksheet from beginning to end just in case you need any extra guidance. Let's get started. So I've got the copy of the scavenger hunt worksheet open and the directions say to go to thunkable.com and create a new Thunkable project and title it Scavenger Hunt. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit create new app here and I'm going to call this new project Scavenger Hunt and hit enter to create. And here I'm in my designer, all right? So I'm going to just get started here. It says components in the add components box. On the left-hand side of the Thunkable interface is the add components box. This column is filled with a lot of different components that you can use in your app. Components are different tools like a button that you can use while building your apps. So when you hover over the component, you can click the question mark next to each component to learn what it does and how you can use the component in your app. So what we're going to do down here is we're going to find the component and then we're going to hit the little question mark to see what it does. And then we're going to write a little description of what it does here, right? And feel free to add more if you want to in any of these blank spaces. So just an example for the button, if I go over here, I see the button. And when I hover over it, you can see that there's a question mark right there. If I click this question mark, it'll give me a little description on what that does. Then I'm going to write what the description is right here. So you can do the same thing for the label. You click on the little question mark and it'll tell you what that does. If you wanted more information, you can always click this learn more button and it'll take you to a web page where it explains more of how that component works. So you're going to go ahead and do that for all of these sections. So you're going to look in the user interface section, which is the first section. And you can also bring these down and up if you need to. They're like drawers. And you're going to then look at the layout section. Then you're going to look at the voice section. And then you're going to look at any other component that you'd like. So if you're like, oh, I want to see, what these image components do, or I want to see what these data components do, or these sensor components, go ahead. This is your chance to have a little scavenger hunt and explore what there is. When you're finished with that, come on back to this video and I'll explain the next part. So in this next part, you're going to actually get to add some components in. And to add those components in, you can either drag them into the editor, to the area on the top, or you can drag them into the designer, right? It's up to you. A lot of people prefer dragging them into the editor on top because it's a little easier to put them in order. So what we're going to need to do is we need to add 2 buttons, a label, and a sound. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 buttons in. I'm going to add a label, and I'm going to add a sound under voice. All right, so now we have to rename the components, and we want to make sure the components are in the right order, okay? So mine are in the wrong order, so I can just grab this label and put it at the bottom, if it'll let me. And that is why a lot of people prefer doing that here, because it's a lot simpler. So we need to change the name of our components. To do that, we're going to go ahead and use this little rename button here. So our button needs to be called Big Button. So I'm going to click on the button. I'm going to rename it and call it Big Button. All right. Our next button is going to be called Small Button. And our last button, and then our label is going to be called Directions Label. And our sound over here, which is also found in the invisible components section, is going to be called bang sound, because we're going to get a sound that goes bang sort of deal. So bang sound. Now we're going to go ahead and edit our components properties. So the first thing we need to do is we need to change our big button properties. So we're going to change the text to the big button. Then we're going to change the text color to red and the background color to black. So the text color, we're going to go to red. So you can either grab the red down here or you can, choose your red. And we're going to change our background color to black. There we go. And we need to change our font size to 30. There we go. And we need to do the same thing to our small button. We need to do the same thing to our directions labels too. So I'm going to fast forward this section to make it a little quicker, and you can go ahead and pause the video while I'm doing this too. All right, now it's time for the bang sound. I already got you the sound file, so let's go ahead and grab it. You're just gonna open up this link here, and it'll take you to a Google Drive where you can download this sound. And here's how the sound sounds. Just like a bang or a smack, right? So we can go ahead and hit download, and it'll go ahead and download the sound for us. Now what we're gonna do is we need to click source and upload the punch wave, all right? So I can go over here, and over here I can see change the file, or I can click on bang sound and I can go ahead and upload a file too. All right, this is probably the easier way to do it because then we don't have to go ahead and change it again. So I can hit upload file here, and I'm gonna go ahead and open up punch wave. And as we can see, the punch.wave has been added, and it's already our source here. So we're good to go to the next section. Last thing I want to do is change our set vertical alignment to top, so that way it's not in the middle of the screen. So to do that, I'm going to click on screen 1 up here, and I'm going to go ahead and change the vertical alignment to top. There we go. Now, 2 questions here. Why do you think we rename our components? And why doesn't the sound component appear, why does it appear at the bottom of the screen under these visible components? All right, so try to think about it and answer the question, and I'm gonna tell you the answer in just a second. So why do we rename our components? Well, if this was button 1 and this is button 2, and I'm in my blocks, I might forget which one's button 1 and which one's button 2. But right now I have all my buttons renamed. So this way I don't get confused. So that's one big reason why we rename our components. And what about the sound component? Why doesn't it appear in here? Or why is it at the bottom here? It's because it's invisible. You can't see sound. So that's why it goes into these invisible components section. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna click on blocks in the top left-hand corner and go to the blocks editor. And then you can click on design to toggle back to the designer. So I'm gonna go ahead and click blocks here, and that gets us to the blocks editor, and if I need to go back, I can click design, all right? So it just toggles back and forth. So on the left-hand side, you will see 2 sets of blocks, the built-in ones, which have the colors on them, and the components that you added, which don't have the colors on them, all right? Now, to learn what each block does, you can actually hover over the block. Right, so it's pretty sweet. It's pretty easy to find out. So for example, if I went to a color and I hover over this red and I wait a second, it says choose a color from the palette, right? So it's able, so if I click on this and I click inside of it, I can choose any color inside of here from the palette. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and look for each of these blocks and find out what they actually do, all right? Let me help you out with the first one here, this one. So you see how it's red? So we're gonna go to the red color here. Here's the red color, and that's where we can find this block, right? So sorry if you're colorblind, you'll just have to do a little bit more searching with the red and green and blue. I'm sorry about that. So as you can see, if I hover over here, I can see exactly what the block does. If I hover over to this one, I can also see what the block does. So it's pretty easy and pretty intuitive in a certain sense. So here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna say the location that it's in, and you're gonna give a little description of what it does. There are quite a few blocks here, but the key ones are these 2 at the end. And let's go over those right now just to make sure you kind of understand them. So we have 2 things. We have direction label set font size to 18, and we have from direction labels get the font size. All right, let's see if we can figure out the difference. So I'm gonna go to the direction label and I'm gonna see where font size is. So we have this block, which is this block, and we have this block, which is this block. This block has a set next to it. That means it's gonna actually change the font size. This block does not have a set, it has get. So what we're gonna be doing here is we're gonna ask the whole entire app, what is the font size of direction label? All right, so the first one sets it, and the second one gets it, all right? So I hope you kind of understand what that is, because we're gonna be using those 2 blocks a lot, the set blocks and the get blocks. Now we're gonna go into the editing blocks section, all right? So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be using the event handlers, the big button event handler, to make an event happen, all right? And this is what we really want. We want the direction label font size to get bigger when the user presses the big button. And we want the direction label font size to get smaller when the user presses the small button. All right, that way we'll have an app that when we hit the big button, the font size will get bigger. When we hit the small button, the font size will get smaller. It'll be pretty easy, simple app, but it'll be a good first step for you all. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and find the big button dot click. All right, so I'm going to go to get the big button dot click, and we can delete these by either bringing them over to the trash can, or we can click on them and hit backspace. All right. And we want to change the direction label font size to 40. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this and have it snap into place like that. And I'm going to change this number to 40. So now I've got the big button all set up. Now I could go grab the small button and drag it in and then grab another directions label. But what we can do is we can actually copy and paste these. There's two ways to do this, all right? You can actually right click and hit duplicate if you want. Or you can click on it and you can hit Control-C to copy and Control-V to paste. That's if you're on a Windows. If you're on Mac, it's going to be Command-C and Command-V. So then once we have, what we have here is two of the same blocks. We don't want that. So these are actually drop-down windows. So we can go ahead and click the drop-down window and I can change it to be the small button. All right, and we need to change our font size. The font size that we're looking for is a font size of 10. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and change this to 10. And we have our big button click and our small button click event handlers all ready. Now what we want to do is add a sound because we don't want it to just, make clicks. We want it to have a sound as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go over here to the bang sound and I'm going to go ahead and have it play. Now, when do we want this thing to play? Well, we want it to play whenever the big button is pressed, right? So now every time we click the big button, it should be making a sound, all right? So now we need to test our app to see if it works. Now, if we want, we don't need to use a phone. We can just click live test here and it'll preview the app here. So I can hit big button and it'll make it big and I hear the sound, and I can hit small button to make it small again. So to test it on the phone, you're gonna go ahead and open the Thunkable app and you're gonna go ahead and make sure you hit live test over here. And then when you click the button, you hear the sound. So that's pretty much it. That's all you got to do for this scavenger hunt. I hope this helped you figure out where everything is located inside Thunkable so that you're more experienced and more comfortable with the user interface of Thunkable. I'll see you at the next lesson.